Hey, let's put Julian Champagnie in the spotlight.
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Spurs right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. Glad to have you all back. Hope you're having a great day and happy hump day. Almost stretch run is here. Stretch run to the weekend. Hang in there. We'll get you through it right here on Locked On Spurs. Subscribe to Locked On Spurs wherever you get your favorite podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Ken's 5 Plus app. You know where to go. Go subscribe to it right now. Also, we got a Locked On Spurs newsletter. If you're on the YouTube side of things, it's in the description below. Click on that link. It's completely free. It's a nice little companion piece right here at Locked On Spurs. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. What are we talking about today? We're going to be putting Julian Champagnie in the spotlight. You know, we've been giving a lot of attention, rightfully so, to Wemby and Vassell, Keldon, Sohan, all this stuff. But Julian's kind of been an unsung hero for the Spurs to start this season. 3-point shots falling, doing a little bit of intangibles on the court. What about some good things he's doing off the court, away from the four corners of the basketball court, in that locker room? We're going to dive into what Champagnie has meant for this team up until this point of the season, and then get into some Locked On Spurs fan comments, and then react to a statement by Popovich regarding the status of his health. But yeah, Champagnie, huh? Who would have thought? Just the guy out of nowhere. Spurs pick him up a couple years ago, and there's some promise. Maybe he was kind of quiet towards last season, but this season, dare I say, nearly 180. And what he is doing, the numbers are just staggering. He's also having career highs in other categories. He's been doing it all for the Spurs, and he's probably a good companion partner to Wembanyama. We'll talk about that, what that means. No, I'm not talking about the Batman and Robin situation. Just a good complementary piece to Wemby, and not just to Wemby, but for the rest of his teammates. Champagnie has really been, in my opinion, an unsung hero for this team to start the season. And more on that, let's go ahead and bring in our guest. He is Matt Guzman. There's Matt. Welcome aboard, Matt. How you doing?
Doing well. How are you? Thanks for having me back.
Very good. Looks like we may not have any tech issues this time, so I
don't believe so.
Yeah, I like that. Matt Guzman is with Spurs on Sports Illustrated. Follow him on X at MattGZMAN. By the way, perfect timing too. He's going to be teaching a piece he has on Julian and his brother later on in the show. Give you a little sneak piece, a taste test before it really comes out. And when it does come out, that's where you're going to follow him on X at MattGZMAN.
Absolutely.
Do that right now, but I know you're itching to talk about your chat with Julian, but we'll save that for a bit. Okay, let's go to dive into some numbers. Let's get the numbers out of the way. First of all, the numbers for Champagnie are just wow. They're just really, really good. From the 3-point shot, we'll dive into that, to other areas of his game which have really improved. One of the areas that I like is his cutting, his ability to get to the rim for easy dunks, easy layups. I think that's been a good aspect of his game. But Matt, let's start off with the 3-point shooting. That's something the Spurs need. Champagnie seems to be the only consistent Spur in that department. I looked at some numbers, Matt, before you jumped in. In his last 5 games, he's shooting 38% from the 3 line. He's taking about 9 3-shot attempts and making about 4 a game. For the Spurs, they'll take it because 3-point shooting is something they don't really have a good amount of players that can knock them down like Champagnie. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. No, it's been something they've been searching for, like you mentioned, for the past few years. And so it's not like they went and traded for, maybe a Buddy Hield, kind of like the Warriors did. They didn't go and find a superstar 3-pointer, but they kind of grew, they bred one in-house. Yeah. And I think that he's definitely been a big key for, these Spurs being, I guess, 13-13 now, sitting at 500 midway through the series, or a quarter of the way through the season. And I think it's something that, like you mentioned, they have been needing, they have been looking for, and I think there's nobody better than a guy like Champagnie to kind of come in and take that role and take that next step.
Yeah, here's a guy, I think years ago he probably would not have considered himself a starter material, but here he is, practically starting almost every single game for the Spurs, if not all of them, since the season started. I like that he spreads the floor for Wemby. They need that with a guy like Victor Wembanyama on the court. He's doing that incredibly. The defenses have to honor his three-point shot. So that just leaves Wemby open, at least in one area of the court, should Champagnie want to pass that up. Do you think, Matt, that Champagnie's an unsung hero for this team so far this season?
I think so. I think generally, yes. It's funny because right before you brought me on, you mentioned, you said, who would have thought Champagnie? I raised my hand to me. For the last 2 years, I've been, very high on his potential as a 3-point shooter, as that playmaker. And so it's really cool to see him flourish into this role because, like we were talking about earlier, he's not this big superstar, but he's somebody who has played his role extremely well. And he's somebody who understands what's expected of him, and he executes. At the very least, he does what he's asked to do, and it helps the Spurs. And so I think that, in a sense, he is a little bit of an unsung hero because he's not the guy that's getting, 20 points a game. He's not the guy that's, in contention for All-Star or Rising Star, NBA Rookie, anything like that. But, he's a piece that has been very integral to this strong start, or comparatively to last season, the strong start the Spurs have had.
Yeah, exactly. And, looking at some more of the numbers here, what stands out, again, we know the obvious, the 3-point shooting, it's there, way to go, Champagnie. But the other things that he's been doing well this season, again, I'm just using a 5-game sample, the last 5 games, he's shooting about 52% from the field. That's just from the field overall. And what I like about this, too, he's playing a clean game. He's been averaging about 2 fouls in the last 5. So he's a very high basketball IQ, doesn't really get him situations where he can get into foul trouble because the Spurs don't have that many 3-point shooters on there. He is by far their best. And if he goes out, well, that could take a huge blow for the Spurs offensive attack. Look at even effective field goal percentage. He's at 56%. And what makes this interesting, Matt, is that he's averaging about 31 minutes per game in the last 5 games. And overall, he's giving you 16.8 points per game. Overall, such an incredible story. But I want to highlight something with you, Matt. One thing that's really been impressing me this season with Champagnie is his rebounding. I believe he's averaging a career high in rebounds per game, hovering around 6, like 5.6, 5.8. He's really taken commitment to getting those rebounds. What do you think?
Absolutely. No, I was kind of looking at his game log here, and that seems to be the stat that, it's not like he's expected to do that, like that's not his primary goal. But for a guy who can shoot well, who can generate offense, but also crash the boards, it's definitely important. And yeah, I mean, the last couple of games he's gotten 6 or 5 or 8 or however many. He's doing his role, and he's definitely, he's multifaceted. He's not just producing from the 3-point line. He's also, finding other ways to impact the game, which only makes him a little bit more or even stronger of a piece for this team.
You're absolutely right. From the rebounding, from the 3-point shooting, just the field goal percentage, playing a clean game, not rarely getting into foul trouble. I think he's just, we can't say enough about it, an unsung hero for the Spurs. Now, are there things he can get better at? Sure. I would like to see him get to the free throw line a little bit more often. Even his, by the way, we didn't even talk about his turnovers. Does he even turn over the ball, Matt? Does he?
Hardly ever.
He averages less than a turnover a game. Again, I'm using my just 5-game sample here, the last 5. 0.6 turnovers per game. That is just awesome for Champagnie. Again, he's showing it all. The stats don't lie. What more can we say? If this was the end of the season and I had to pick my surprise breakout player, I would say Champagnie, but I'll be honest with you. I would not have penciled him for that honor. If he keeps this up for the rest of the season, but to start the season, I would have said somebody like, it's Trey Jones or Blake Wesley. Now I'm going to have to rethink that. I might have to say Julian Champagnie could be, for the Spurs, their breakout player of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's had that potential from day one, because he's not going to be, put in for I guess, 40 minutes a game. And this is not a guy who is going to be, on the top of the chart or on the top of the roster as far as production goes. But what he does with what he's given and how he's improved over the last couple of seasons has been really exceptional. And, to your point, he would be definitely aligned for a surprise breakout player, for somebody who kind of jumped off the page, maybe in a way that, wasn't exactly expected. Obviously, Devin Vassell we're still waiting for him to kind of take that uptick and really become that number 2 option in San Antonio. But Julian Champagnie, that was never the expectation. It was, hey, we got a decent shooter. He's got some size to him. Let's see what he can do. And this is what he's showing us.
Yeah. Again, stats don't lie. The numbers are showing just how impactful he has been for the Spurs up until this point of the season. Now, just a few more little stat things to throw at you about Champagnie. Now, among other small forwards, basically players at his position, okay? He is 4th in 3-point attempts, 5th in 3-pointers made, 14th in defensive rebounds, and he's 1st in free throw percentage. So he has basically pretty much been an impactful player for the Spurs this season. We're talking with Matt Guzman of Spurs on Sports Illustrated. Make sure to follow him on X at MattGZMAN. When we continue our chat about Champagnie, what is stuff off the court or on the court, but it's not stat related that we like what he's doing so far this season. By the way, Matt's coming on a good time. He's going to tell you, maybe give you a little insight about that aspect of Champagnie. That's next right here on Locked On Spurs. But first, I got to talk to you about Game Time. And when I talk to you about Game Time, go to gametime.co right now. Game Time is a new feature called Game Time Picks. Make getting tickets easier for your favorite live events that much better. Game Time filters out the fluff, so you only get incredible deals on great seats. You don't have to waste time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. Hey, Game Time has it all. They have the super deal. They got seats view before you buy. They got curated deals to make it easier to find the best price on great seats, the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection. You will be pleasantly surprised with this app. Go get it right now. Game Time Picks, again, that's a curation that makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater. Hey, they have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant with your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions and monitors your spending and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one spot, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a month a year when using all of the app's premium features. Look, for me, it's one of the best features is the subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, and I've already saved a ton. Plus, with their goals feature, I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future. No more stressing about budgeting each month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. We're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Matt Guzman. Follow him on X at MattGZMAN. He is with Spurs on Sports Illustrated. He'll be talking to you about an upcoming article slash chat he had with Champagnie and more later on the show. Again, another reason you got to follow him on X. But Matt, we kind of dove into the numbers to start off this segment about Champagnie. Let's talk about what he does that's not stat related. First of all, I think he's good with the media. Very honest.
Absolutely.
Very upfront. Very to the point, and not in a mean way, nothing like that. He's just very open. He's very real. I think it was either you or somebody in one conference room. I believe it may have been you. They asked him, what about your performance? I think the night he had a 30-pointer, I believe. And he's talked about it. Yeah, he made a shot, but he goes, but we lost. Again, thinking the team first. So what I like that about him, he's very down to earth. He doesn't let it get to his head. He understands he's a role player. He even joked one time, after a game, he's like, I didn't think I'd be getting up here as often this year. So here he is. So I like that he's very humble. He has a lot of humility, and he understands it's still a team first thing. Even though he did have a 30-point outing, career high, he still wanted that W. Your thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, for sure. And I think we were tracking that together. The, how many 3-pointers he had hit and how many points he had that game. And so, it was me at the very end of the conference asking him just about, his 30-point game and having 2 career highs. And I ended up doing a follow-up story on that exact thing because it was very, like you said, it was very, very, I guess, team-oriented and unselfish, selfless. Because he said, I had 30 points, but I would have rather we had 30 points and we won. And so for him, that's kind of his thing is he wants to make sure that he's doing what he can to help the team win. And I think he kind of understands that, if he does that, if he's consistently being, a reason that these Spurs are hanging in games or winning games or performing well, then everything's going to take care of itself. He doesn't have to worry about his position or if he's starting or not. He just wants to kind of do what he can to elevate the team.
Yeah, exactly. And, I've been in the locker room after games, and I could see him, how he interacts with the players. And let me tell y'all, first of all, he's a very good teammate. First of all, y'all never experienced Keldon Johnson in the locker room. That's a whole other story. He is just fireball, bouncing off the wall. He's like that little kid. Look at me, look at me, look at me in class. That's how Keldon is. But Keldon is also, just the guy who likes to keep that locker room light. Well, one day, Keldon was messing around with Bassie. He was telling Bassie, hey, you had a great game. Be careful. The league might go drug test you now. So everybody was just laughing in the locker room. And then you see Champagnie there sitting down in his locker room, and he's hamming it up with the guys too. He's laughing. He's talking. He even started talking to the media there. He was picking on some of us and like, all y'all do is type. He was all going like this to us. All y'all do is this, And then I looked at him because he started laughing with me, and I looked at him and I go, hey, Matt, Champagnie, they may be writing about you. And he goes, oh, never mind then. He goes, so again, just very, very nice as well. You had a chance to talk with him one-on-one. What did you learn about him? What did you learn that maybe something Spurs fans don't know about him?
Yeah, well, I think, I got to talk to him a little bit about his brother and his having a twin in the NBA. They had been super, super close all throughout their entire lives until they decided, well, they're still close, but, it kind of changed when they went to college and started going their separate ways. I think the thing that I learned about him is not only is he very, his relationships that he has in his life are very close to him, but at the same time, this is a guy who really doesn't take for granted the opportunities that he's given. He went undrafted in 2022, and I asked him about it, and he said, well, it's humbling. My ego was extremely bruised. And he said he kind of had to come to terms with that. And then it was humbling again when he was waived by the 76ers before coming to the Spurs. And so, that's something that Spurs fans might not know is, he exudes this confidence and this need to shoot and keep, producing as well as he can. But at the same time, he's very, he very much understands, how lucky he is to be in the situation that he's in and why, if nothing else, why it's important for him to try and put in that effort because it's not necessarily guaranteed because he's had to work for everything that he's earned.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you could see it in just the way he carries himself. You talk about how he had a bruised ego. You can see that humility at it. We talked about it a little while ago. He's very humble. He understands, where he's coming from. And I think they all know, they're not the star. That's Wemby. That's all Wemby. So he knows his role and he's playing that to the best of his abilities. And the numbers prove that. And I had a chance to talk to him last year, one-on-one earlier in the season. And one thing I learned about him is that he's still open to learning about his craft. In our chat, we talked about how he takes advantage of the Spurs practice facility and some of the elements and machines and science they got out there and how it helps him break down his shot. And I really believe that those things that he was learning about himself, working on his shot, to what it's turning to now, has just paid off. So I took away from that is that he's still willing to learn. He understands that, hey, we all have room to grow. And he took advantage of that last year. And you're seeing it pay dividends this year. So for me, I just take that as somebody who's still willing to learn, still willing to take advantage of the tools ahead of him, in front of him, I should say, and become better. And the numbers prove that. So overall, I like Champagnie and what he's bringing to this team. I think he deserves a lot more praise than what he's given. You know, all eyes are on Wemby. We understand that's Devin and Sohan with the wild hair and the numbers that he's doing as well. Keldon, off the bench. Chris Paul, we get that. But quietly in the background, Champagnie, is it safe to say a glue guy, kind of holding things together?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Last year the Spurs were really struggling at the beginning of the season, and they had Victor, but they were still struggling because everyone was still trying to learn to play with each other. And I think this year, obviously they've all matured a year, and they've all had another year of experience. They've learned a little bit better how to play as a unit, but at the same time, Champagnie is on the court, giving an offensive boost, to say the least. And I think that kind of carries over to the locker room, because when they're winning, they kind of help things to go better. And it's a lot, in part, has been because of him and the jump that he's taken from last season, and especially for when he started.
Yeah, exactly. So all in all, it's good. So we've been talking about Matt and an article he's going to be doing or / working on, and then putting it out there for everybody to enjoy with Julian. Tell us more about that. What else did you learn? How can fans go check that out once it's ready to go?
Yeah, for sure. So once it's posted, it'll be on Spurs on SI, obviously. And so that's a big one that I'm going to kind of dive into. Not only, his ascension from showing up in San Antonio and now a consistent starter, as we mentioned, but also kind of, the family aspect. He's got a twin in the league, so I'm getting a chance to talk to Justin Champagnie, who's kind of done his fair share of bouncing around. He's with the Washington Wizards right now. Kind of get a gauge for, what Champagnie is like behind the scenes, when the cameras aren't on him or when he's not shooting 5, 6, 7 3-pointers in a game. And so I'm looking forward to kind of learning more about the dynamic there. And it was funny, though, because one of the things that he told me about was that when he was waived by the 76ers, he was waived on Valentine's Day. And he goes, so I was waived on Valentine's Day and I have a girlfriend. And I said, well, hey, did y'all still go to dinner? He said, yeah, we went to dinner. It was terrible. We laughed about it. So he said he tried his best not to let, he said it ruined my day. Hopefully it didn't ruin our day. But, he definitely had a rough couple of days, going between, figuring out what's next. And luckily he ended up in a decent spot, and he's shown why he belongs.
Yeah, exactly. And he was just right there for the Spurs to scoop up. I mean, right. Talk about a gem the Spurs found. I hope the Spurs keep him at least as long as they can for the rebuild. I think he's proven that he brings value to this team in the rebuild. Floor spacing obviously is a big one, but again, he's been upping his rebounds. He's playing a clean game, minimal turnovers. What more do you ask for a guy who got undrafted and was cut on Valentine's Day? So hopefully he'll be around for the long haul of the rebuild. We shall see, with free agency coming up and off-season draft.
Right.
I don't know, but crossing fingers, Champagnie is wearing that silver and black for years to come. When we get back, we're going to be discussing you guys' Locked On Spurs fan comments. What are y'all talking about over at the Locked On Spurs YouTube page? That's next right here on Locked On Spurs. But first, I want to talk to you about FanDuel. Hey, I want to talk to you about FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need and the place where to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So you get a hunch in the middle of a game. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bet. Just visit FanDuel.com right now to join today. By the way, the app is very easy to use, user-friendly. It's very intuitive and not hard to navigate whatsoever. Sign up is easy. Hey, look, NFL action, as mentioned, is underway. NBA action is underway. Your Spurs are underway right now. What more do you need? Go to FanDuel.com right now to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. Again, $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. All that takes is just for you to go and sign up right now. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Hey, there's a PSA for anyone who rents. If you haven't heard of Built, you're about to thank me. Earning points on rent is now a reality when you pay your rent through Built. You don't even have to check with your landlord to start earning points that you can use towards flights, hotels, stays, fitness classes, even your next rent payment. Let me break it down for you. Basically, there's no cost to join Built, and as a member, you'll earn valuable points on rent and your everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels, airlines, even the ones you haven't heard of. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world you can redeem your Built points towards. Points can be also redeemed towards a future rent payment, unique experiences that only Built members can access. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is why not? Start earning points on a rent you're already paying by going to Built or joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. That's joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. joinbilt.com/LockedOnNBA. Make sure to use our URL so they know that we sent you. Joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA to start earning points on your rent payments today.
This is Homer Simpson, and you are listening to my favorite Spurs podcast, Locked on Spurs. Donuts.
We're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Matt Guzman with Spurs on Sports Illustrated. Follow him on X at MattGZMAN. And now we're going to be discussing some Locked On Spurs fan comments. But first, Popovich and the Spurs released a statement regarding the status of his health. In a nutshell, rehab is going well. He hopes to be back on the sidelines soon. His humor is still there. He joked about how his rehab trainers are realizing he's not coachable. He wishes everybody, the sincerest of thanks for all the well wishes that he's been getting from the community about his recovery. Hopefully he'll be back sooner than later. Matt, good to hear from Pop, huh?
Absolutely. And we talked to Steph and Jeremy about it today at Shoot Around, and they said, nothing that was said out there was anything that they hadn't heard or been in contact with him about. But, obviously for everybody, the public, to kind of get a chance to hear from him himself after not really knowing much about what's gone on or how he's been, it's definitely good to hear. And it was nice to see that, he seems adamant on making a return. I know that was in question for some people, but, I think everyone's looking forward to the day that he's back and coaching again.
Yeah, and that's how I feel. Open question: in what capacity would he be back? Will he take over the head coaching reign, or maybe I don't know, take a back seat? We shall see. I don't think he'll take a back seat to Mitch, but we'll see exactly what capacity. Hopefully, Pop is just getting better, and we get to see him in public sooner or later. All right, let's talk about some Locked On Spurs fan comments, and let's stick with the 3-point concept idea that we've been talking about. And no, it's not about Julian Champagnie. It's just about the overall 3-point shooting. Now, a lot of fans are reacting to yesterday's Locked On Spurs, where we put the 3-point shooting in focus and how it's pretty bad this year, Matt. I mean, you and I, we sat on press the other day. We were talking about it. I mean, for them to, did they even realize there's a 3-point line in the recent game? Seriously, against Minnesota, it was just bad. But we have some comments regarding that. And the first one up is from Frank Santini, 4990. He says they need to acquire a 3-point sharp shooter to help alleviate pressure on Wemby and the Spurs' inside game. If it's through a draft or the trade, they need to get somebody to help. What do you think about that, Matt? By the way, thank you, Frank Santini, for the comment. What do you think about that? Do they need to acquire a 3-point shooter? And if so, when? This season? Trade deadline? In the draft, free agency? How do you think you should address that?
Yeah, I think, we've been kind of waiting to see, you and I, is this going to be something that they go out and make it a big point to address at the trade deadline or in the offseason? I think I was a little puzzled at the trade deadline last year when they got rid of Doug McDermott, because he was a guy, obviously on the older end, but somebody who was, a very reliable 3-point shooter from the bench. Julian Champagnie, as we mentioned, is kind of ascended into a little bit of that role, but by no means is he like a three, like he's not shooting 10 12 a game. And so I think it is something that they're probably going to have to address, whether they like it or not. They have Victor Wembanyama, who insists on shooting 3-pointers. They have Devin Vassell, who is supposed to be able to do so as well. So they have pieces that can, but I do think that they're going to want either they're going to need one of those guys to just really lock in and start becoming a consistent with volume 3-point shooter, or they're going to have to go and get somebody. And, we don't know what the offseason is going to look like or what the interest is going to be at the trade deadline in February, but it's definitely something that I think they would consider.
Yeah, exactly. And it reared its ugly head against the Minnesota Timberwolves. It was just abysmal. And
11 for 45, I think.
jeez, I know. Hey, tell that little anecdote you had for me during press row. You're talking about
Oh,
how
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
full circle of the whole year.
Yeah, so I guess a year ago, December 17th, today, 1 year ago, um, I think it was against the New Orleans Pelicans on Tony Parker's Hall of Fame night. The Spurs shot like terribly from three, like I think sub 30%. And Popovich ended up giving a 25-second exit interview that day. And then he was like, well, we couldn't throw it in the ocean. We couldn't shoot in the ocean. And that's what you call an ass whooping. And a year later, almost to the day, was the same night that Mitch Johnson's squad shot 11 for 45. And I thought it was interesting because I figured that the press conference afterward wasn't going to be quite so harsh from Mitch.
Yeah.
And it was a lot more tame than Popovich's a year ago. But almost to the day, year back, it was completely terrible. Like I don't think they would have made it in the ocean either night. So
Yeah. It was bad. It was to the point where I was like, yeah, I kept on. For those that don't understand, where they see this in media real, this kind of to our upper right, if we're looking over our shoulder, there's kind of a stats, and then you look at the big screen, there's more stats. But I had to ask Matt. I was like, Matt, am I reading that number right? He goes, does that say 24 or something like that? And you looked at me, you went like, yeah, that's about right. That's 24% shooting.
I mean, and you saw me. I kept laughing every time they kept shooting and missing because it was just comical how bad it was.
Yeah, and this season, the Spurs ranked near the bottom, 22nd overall in the NBA, 34.4% shooting from the three line. And let me dig up some numbers here real fast. It's actually, I mean, if you want improvement, last year for the season, they shot 32.5. So way 34%. Woohoo! 34%. We'll take it. They're up. Nowhere else to go but up. All right. Thank you, Frank Santini, for that comment. All right. We have our next comment is from, I'm going to try to do this right. It's Vascariz, Vascariz. So thank you. I was Vass. Your comment here is, not ahead, on track, but inconsistent, but improving. Now, he's reacting, or she's reacting, to a recent episode of Locked On Spurs where we asked, are the Spurs ahead of schedule? So, according to this commenter, Matt, they believe that the Spurs are just on track. They're not ahead of the rebuild. They're just right where they should be. Where do you think they fall?
I think so. I think that's a fair assessment because, there's only well, I guess it depends on who you're asking, right? Because there's some people who believe that this team should be in the NBA Finals because they have Victor Wembanyama. And I realize it takes time to get to that point.
How long did
they're on
Joker
schedule?
get it? Is the Joker about 7-8 years to get one?
It took 7-8 years. Yeah, absolutely. Now, look where he's at. I think Victor is going to be a generational talent like that. He's already proving he is, but it's only going to get better. I think they're on track. They have that guy as their foundation. They're starting to find these role pieces, whether it's Champagnie or Jeremy or Devin, that are, able to maybe not be stars, but to really help, build around that centerpiece. You have a standout rookie who's looking to only get better as he goes on. And right now, they're benefiting from these very older players who have seen the league. And then, Harrison Barnes has an NBA title, they have this experience. And so I think they took, leaps and bounds ahead of where they were last season. But obviously they're not going to be a top 5 seed in the West, most likely. But, they have a shot at the play-in, and I think that they're only going to continue to progress. And I think they're doing just fine.
Well, if they stay on track, even if they end up at 500, let's just say 41-41 split, that's still not enough to get into the play-in,
right?
At all. So,
though, it's 20 games more than last season, which is huge.
It is huge, yeah. So, but that's right. Then the bright side of that is they got 20 plus wins built. So, yay! So that to me, if they do that, in my opinion, I think they're ahead of the schedule. If they nearly double their win total, because right now, again, I checked, Vegas still has them at 35 wins. That's it, 35 now. Like 13 game increase from last year, still improvement, but the bar was set so freaking low. So if they got 30, that would have been great. We'll see how it pans out. But in my opinion, I do believe they will break through the 35 win total projection Vegas has it, and I think they'll hover around 40, 38, 30, 41 maybe. They'll be in that realm. So many things that are happening. You have, just teams and, Pelicans that have fire sale. The Mavericks haven't been like dominant team we've seen so far. There really hasn't been a clear leader of the pack in the West. Unless I'm forgetting somebody here, Denver has kind of been shaky to start. Houston, maybe. Houston is probably like one of the lower teams I can.
They've done well.
Yeah, they're doing very well. But I mean, the door is open for the Spurs. But again, I just want to know, when can we say it's too early to tell? Like, when is that cut off? Is it after 3 months in? But it's only what, like 15 games in, 15, 16 games in? Oh, sorry, 20, 25, 26, excuse me, games in for the season. So we'll see.
They still got a long way to go.
They still got a long way to go. So, but again, even if they go 41-41, that's still a 20-plus point, 20-something improvement. So there's that. Yeah, exactly. He is Matt Guzman with Spurs on Sports Illustrated, I should say. Follow him on X at MattGZMAN. Now, he talked a lot about his Champagnie article that's coming out soon. Any idea when that can come out?
Well, I'm hoping to round out the reporting in the next couple of days with an old college coach and obviously Justin, his brother. So hoping for the next couple of weeks to get that out. I in my head I had thought maybe in time for the next time the two brothers play each other, but that's in February, so I don't think I'm gonna wait that long. But maybe it'll be an early Christmas gift, maybe it'll be a New Year's resolution. Who knows? But it's on the horizon. So
I'm pushing for Christmas. I want a Christmas gift under the tree. Christmas Day. Yeah. Hey, look, think about this. Spurs play on Christmas Day. What about a present from Matt Guzman?
That would be nice.
That'll be good. See, another reason you got to follow Matt on X, MattGZMAN. He's with Spurs on Sports Illustrated. We always thank him for his time to hop on Locked On Spurs with me. I'll definitely see Matt at the next home game sitting with me as we laugh at the Spurs 3-point shooting. Hopefully we don't. Hopefully we're not doing that. But again, we thank y'all for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. Free and available wherever you get podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Ken's 5 Plus app. You know where to go. Link in the description below. You want to click on it. Why? Because that's the link to the Locked On Spurs newsletter. Click on that ASAP. Get your free Locked On Spurs newsletter, I should say, in your inbox every single day. Please go get that right now. We'll be back tomorrow. I believe Jack Thompson is coming back, discussing more silver and black as the Spurs season continues. But for Matt Guzman, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.